Hello and a very warm welcome to France 24's Euro 2020 show. England have knocked out eternal rivals Germany after beating them 2-0 at Wembley in their last 16 tie, their first win over the Germans in a knockout match since the 1966 World Cup final. All the analysis on that game to come, and we'll also be talking about their future opponents, Ukraine, in the quarterfinals with Eurosport's Ruben Slagter. Ruben, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure, as always, to have you on the show. It was considered by many as the tie of the last 16. Historic rivals England up against Germany, and it is the Three Lions who progressed after beating the Mannschaft 2-0 thanks to goals by Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane. Gareth Southgate's team moved through to the quarterfinals. It's the first time they have scored more than 2 goals in a match at the tournament, and they are still yet to concede. Ruben, we saw a diligent, clinical England against this German team.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. I think England played. They played a good match. They won, so they can be happy. It wasn't spectacular. Maybe after yesterday night we were expecting something crazy, but let's say that this match was tactically more sound than those two crazy matches from yesterday. But England did what they had to do. They had 2 real chances and they scored both. So they're deserved winners because Germany didn't score, and they had their opportunities as well, of course.
And your views on the Germany side, crashing out like this?
Well, it was a strange tournament, I think, for the Germans. We've seen them playing some really good football against Portugal. They were quite bad against Hungary. Today they played an okay match, I would say. I think that this match was really won on details. I think, well, like I say, England was scoring the goals when they had to, whereas especially the big Thomas Müller opportunity. Well, we see him there on the picture. He was the determination of the English was just more than the Germans, I would say. That was the difference today.
Well, the night belonged to England, and it is fitting that we hear from the star of the match, the man of the match, Harry Maguire, who praised his manager after the game.
Gareth studies the game and picks the team that he thinks is the best one to go and win the football match, and I'm sure he'll continue to do that without listening to everyone else who has an opinion. But that's football. That's why we're involved in football. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone thinks differently. But yeah, of course, leadership is a big part of us being where we are now. Not just players, staff, everyone involved.
Very interesting from Harry Maguire, Ruben, because the initial reaction from many people when they saw the England lineup when it came out was anger, disbelief, disappointment, however you want to put it. But of course it worked. But do you still get that feeling we want a little bit more?
Yeah, so were we. No, when you saw the lineup with all those defensive players, you were like, where's Mason Mount? Okay, there was the whole COVID story, but where's Phil Foden? Where's Jack Grealish? And when Jack Grealish came on, I think the match changed. So of course, he's defending his manager, and Gareth Southgate won the match 2-0. He's the first one to win against Germany since a very, very long time. So he is right. We can't argue with that. But with all those fantastic players at the English side, you were expecting a little bit more. At the same time, they won 2-0, so why would they care?
Harry Maguire also said that he picks his teams in accordance to the opponents. So can we expect more of the same, very defensive-minded England, or will against the Ukraine? Now we know that it's England. Are they going to be more adventurous?
They should. I mean, if you look at the Ukraine matches, their strong point is more in attack than in defense. So if England wants to win that match, I think, for example, this match, they were really reacting on what Germany wanted to do. I think that if against Ukraine, England will be the odds-on favorite. So it's up to them to attack and to play for a win. At least we all hope. I think that it will be a little bit more offensive from the start. At the same time, again, France became world champion in 2018 without playing really, exciting football. So maybe for the English this time as well, if it's coming home with defensive football, I don't think they will care.
Oh, it's coming home, and it certainly was an incredible game against, as we mentioned, huge rivals. For years, England have been haunted by Germany in international football. The 2010 World Cup, the penalty shootout at Wembley in 1996. With this win, Gareth Southgate has ended a 55-year wait for an English win against Germany in knockout football. Ruben, can you put this victory in perspective for us? Germany dominating England for so long, and England finally overcoming this obstacle?
Well, it's a real mental victory, and that's really impressive. No, isn't it? They were so determined today. The English, in general, when the English meet the Germans, or at least that was what we have seen in all those matches during the years. It was when Germany came on, it was Germany that was more determined, and that's a big change. At the same time, it's also a clash of generations. We've seen the English generation. There's a new team standing up where the Germans are still in a transition between two generations. You have on one side the players like Mats Hummels, Thomas Müller, for example, and the new ones coming in. So, well, you could see that the English were just it will for them mentally already be something really impressive. Now it's up to the Germans to come with a reaction, and with a new trainer, we'll see what they will have in store for us.
Well, speaking of which, we also wave goodbye, the football community waves goodbye to a great gentleman of football, Joachim Löw, who's been with Germany for 15 years, Ruben, 197 games and a 63% win ratio.
Yeah, you have to give him a lot of credit. It's a little bit sad for him that we're only talking about him losing to the English for the first time in 55 years. It's also his team that went out in the 2018 World Cup in the group stages. But we shouldn't forget he became world champions with Germany in 2014. And like you say, a real gentleman of football. So it's also important to underline all the good stuff he did. As you maybe in the German newspapers, there will be some criticism, I think. After 2018, there was already a lot of people asking for him to leave. Okay, now he will leave, and it's sad for him that he will leave on a bad note. But yeah, like you say, it's quite remarkable. 15 years as head coach of such an important football country. We can say that he really left his marks in the football world.
One of the longest-serving managers in international football. But enough about England. The Three Lions will meet Ukraine in the quarterfinals. The Ukrainians beat Sweden just a few minutes ago with a 121st-minute goal to break Swedish hearts in extra time. Another game that went to extra time. Another game filled with passion. This was a superb match, Ruben. Goals, red cards. The woodwork was hit by both teams. And now it's Ukraine against England. How do we analyse it?
Well, it's clear that England is the favourite, but the French were the favourites against the Swiss as well. So it's now, let's watch how the Ukrainians will come out of this match. It's their opportunity of a lifetime for the Ukrainians as well to go once into the semis of a European Championships. Having said that, at the end of the match, you already saw them quite tired as well. It's clear that the English will be the favourites. It's now up to England to show that they are now one of the real tournament favourites to win it. Having said that, I also think that the Ukrainians are already really, really happy with what they've done, because they are being them in the quarterfinals. It's already quite a performance, I would say.
Yeah, it's the first knockout game that they've won in European Championship history. And you mentioned before that they're more of a team that focus on their attacking side, Ruben. Yeah. If we look at the players, Yaremchuk, Miranchuk, we also have... No, Miranchuk plays for Russia, my mistake. But you also have Zinchenko there. How is that how they've managed to come this far in the tournament?
I think so. At the same time, today it wasn't. Yeah, they had a good game. It wasn't perfect, but against the Swedes it's difficult. I think that the English will be happy to play Ukraine. Ukraine is more an offensive team, so you get a more open match against the English. Depends how the English will play, of course. But I think that for the English it will be easier to beat them compared to a stubborn Sweden side, which we saw also today. It's quite hard to beat. So. Yeah, it's a great generation of Ukrainian players with some young defenders connected to it, and a legendary manager, of course, with Andrei Shevchenko. So it's always great to see him on the touchline. It will be a nice match to look forward to, and let's hope that they will give us some even more excitement in this tournament.
Well, we've just got enough time to have a look at those quarterfinals and the matches in store for us after a 2-day break. The Euros return on Friday, starting with Switzerland against Spain, and then the big clash of this quarterfinal stage. Belgium against Italy, a really tough game to call. England then take on the Ukraine in Rome, whereas the Czech Republic and Denmark will play all the way in Baku for a place in the semi-finals. Very, very quickly from you, Ruben, who do you see going through in these matches?
Well, that will be quickly. Well, the clear favorites for me are Denmark, England, Spain, Italy, Belgium. Well, that's the big match, but I would say Italy a little bit more favorite after the whole tournament, and Kevin De Bruyne probably out. So we'll see. At the same time, with all the predictions we did in this show, and everything went wrong until now, so maybe all the other four will go through.
We'll have to wait and see. Unfortunately, that's the end of this Euro 2020 show. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Ever since the huge fire ripped through Notre Dame, this ancient cathedral has been turned into a giant building site. Now, 2 years on, the work to secure and shore up the structure is mostly finished, but the hard work is far from over.
Don't miss Notre Dame Revisited, in the heart of the cathedral, alongside the men and women working to save its fire-damaged vaults. Notre Dame Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.